After e4, c5, and knight c3, we're playing the Grand Prix, meaning that we're going to play the pawn to f4. Let's look at a bunch of lines to see how to take it. This is part one. We're going to make plenty of videos. Let's start from, look at there's four options that I've made notes here. One of them will be d6. There's also e6 and knight c6 and a6. So let's start, for example, from e6. So we play f4. We're going to play f4 no matter what. There are two main options here. The main move, which is d5, but also knight c6. We're going to see how to take them. So d5 straight away. This is the main move. Knight f3 is the move I suggest to go on with, just to deflect a little bit from theory. Although the right move is bishop b5, but knight f3 is also the right move. We're going to play bishop b5 check no matter what. So after this move, knight f3, there are a bunch of options. Okay, let's start, for instance, from knight to c6. Bishop to b5 is the move. We're going to pin the knight and we're going to take it. Now, if black plays d4, black could have played that move one move ago. In fact, black could play d4, and we're going to go through a line here, going with bishop b5. So that's a transposition. So let's go to knight c6, bishop b5. We're going to pin the knight, d4, and we're going to talk about this line in a minute. Knight e7, for instance, looks like the kind of move, looks the annoying type of move where they want to take back with the knight. So you take, and then they take back with the knight. So it looks like you've achieved nothing. But actually, the key move is now take, and now they're going to take back. And if they take with the knight, then you can just take you can put pressure on the knight. I could take also. They take back, but you could put pressure on the knight. And as you notice here, the engine plays bishop to d7, but we're going to take this no matter what. They take back, you take, and then you take. And we have doubled up and isolated the c pawn, which is something that we always want to do. In this case, you notice how the engine preferred to do that by also removing the bishop pair from the opponent, which makes perfect sense. The game will go on with a line that we will explore, a very similar line we will explore in a minute. So here, after taking the pawn, they're going to take back with the pawn. You play queen e2. The reason is simple. Now you're pinning the knight, and you're willing to take the knight and break the pawn structure. You're also putting pressure on this pawn. What can be done now? Let's bunch of options. Bishop e6 doesn't work. Looks like a normal move, but you're just going to take. If they take with the knight, f5 wins the bishop because the bishop's pinned, so they're going to have to take with the pawn. And now the development goes on like this. I'm going to show you a long line just to see how to take the endgame, and then we're going to move on. b3, so you're going to develop the bishop like that. You're often going to have to do this because the bishop doesn't have a future on this diagonal. So knight f5 now, in order to develop the dark sword bishop. Knight a4, and this is a thematic thing we've seen a lot in the Rossolimo videos, where you play bishop a3 and putting pressure on the double pawn. So we double up these pawns, and we're going to attack it with the knight and with the bishop and win the free pawn. Bishop e7, castle, castle, bishop a3 going for the pawn. It's impossible to defend. I mean, they can play queen a5, but remember how we did this in the Rossolimo videos if you've been following this channel. Queen to a5. Here the engine goes on with, I haven't actually created this line yet, but I can see it now. Position is evaluated plus 250. In the Rossolimo there was a line where you play queen to d2, trade queens, and then win the pawn. Here he actually says g4, and the best move according to the engine is rook f e8. Black doesn't even bother saving the knight. Well, the knight could go to h4, or let's say h6, for instance. You play f5, and well, this is a skewer, and yeah, so that's the weakness. So g4 is the move that wins. Now here, black could play c4, which is the line I had a note on. Basically, black doesn't lose a pawn. He's asking for a trade of bishops. So take, and then you play g4. The knight will have to move. If knight to d6, f5, and we're winning. You know, there's this thematic thing. So remember, when black player plays bishop e6, that bishop is misplaced. If black instead goes h4, then you can play f5 anyway. Check, take, you have to take the rook in order to maintain the pin. And now the best move according to the engine is queen f6, attacking the rook, counter-attacking the rook. So we have to save the rook, and it looks like black can save the day. But now queen e5, simplifying the game. The queen will have to swap, and black is much worse. Yeah, the position is, well, actually, black is not much worse. It's like slightly worse. Okay, but this is black having played only engine moves for 18 moves. That's very unlikely. If they refuse the trade, you can see that the engine is desperate for trade. This means that we're confident to play this endgame because we've got the open file, rook e7 and double up the rooks. And let's say queen h4, this is a longer line. Queen g3, queen g5, really desperate. Knight c5 is the usual move to attack that bishop. Rook d8, and then rook doubling up. And this is just engine playing against engine, so we're not going to go any deeper than this. This is black playing only best moves. Let's go back here. So we're playing this this bishop b5. Black is protecting it with the knight, and we're taking the pawn. They take back queen e2. We went through bishop e6, which is a misplaced bishop. It's a bad move. So let's go through other lines, like for example bishop g4, also g6. These are two ideas. So let's go bishop g4. Here bishop g4, you take the knight. Okay, they have to take with the pawn, but it looks like this is not a weakness because the center is quite strong with the pawns, but there is still a backward c6 pawn. So b3, usual development. If they play d4, this move seems to be making sense to attack the knight. The knight has to move. Knight e4. Now they have to take the knight. This is the best move according to the engine. We're also threatening some nasty checks. This is dangerous. g6 cannot be played by black because of checkmate. Best move is to take. We have to take back with the queen in order to keep the pawn structure safe. And now f5 is the best move according to the engine, and we're going to win this pawn. There's nothing that really could have been done. Okay, queen d5, I haven't seen this line yet myself. Let's say knight g6, for example, and white is like much better after f5. Then there's this line with queen h4, giving up material. But yeah, knight e5, and then you play queen to g3. So this is a better position. Queen to g3 is a thematic move when black is not developed the dark square bishop. Queen g3 stops the development of the bishop. And g6 now is really ugly. Well, apart from losing the knight, but let's see. Apart from losing the knight, yeah, queen d5 is the best move according to the engine. You play d3, and g6 is really ugly. Knight f6 wins the game. Like I keep I keep bringing it up how g6 is not possible. Long castle is even the best move, but position is evaluated +2. g6 just keeps losing for all the tactical reason that you happen to see right now. I hadn't really created the line yet, so I just went with the best move for the engine here, which is f3, but we haven't looked at queen d5, and white now castles, and apparently black really has to play this move. f5 is still the move recommended. If g6, there's knight f6, so it's just, it keeps happening. So that is a city's weakness. So f5 comes here in this position, and our opponent has to give up the pawn. What about queen b6, for example? But I see a check here, so let's not even go through that. So let's say f5. Knight takes the pawn. Knight to d5. Knight to d5 is the line I've got. We play knight to d3, and yeah, the line continues with bishop to d6. We play bishop to b2, and we put in more attack over that pawn. Castle long, and if black plays, let's say queen to d7, this is a free pawn. So queen to b6 to defend that pawn. Obviously, the pawn could not go to c5 because of the dropping the knight. Rook h to e1. a5, a4. So if they play a5, this is the only counter play available for black on this file. So a5, just play a4 and stop that from happening. Knight b4, for instance, you take and then they take, but the rook is on an open file technically, but it's a stupid open file. Rook e6, and I'm going to close the line here. This is a seriously better position for white. Obviously, I can't go all the way to the end game and show everything that can possibly happen, but I'm going to go through all the possible lines. So if there's some lines that are not included in this video, I'm going to include it in the next one. So here we're in this position where we play queen e2, and we're attacking the knight. And what about g6? What if black tries to play that already? Then take, and then queen f2. And now let's look at two options: bishop g7, castle. But then we're gonna win the pawn. Queen b6, for example, to get some dynamism here, a take, and even opening the file for the opponent is crazy. But after d3 is there's no compensation for our opponent. You're gonna have to take it from here, because there's so many moves that now our opponent can decide to play, but there's no compensation for the lost pawn. So after queen f2 here, there is an idea of playing d4 to stop us from winning the pawn. Knight e4 though is too strong, and now we're threatening knight f6, checkmate, knight f5, and then castle, bishop d6. These are all best moves. You could play bishop g7 for example, and then the game carries on. d3, and this signifies that the knight going to e3 isn't really a problem, neither now nor later. This bishop isn't particularly important. We also have an attack on the square c5, don't forget that. So let's go to, so after d4, knight e4, knight f5, castle d6, then take this bishop, and they have to take back. Let's say queen takes back, you got the check. If I don't know, bishop e6, then just put pressure on the bishop. Castle is the best move according to the engine. Take, and I play d3 and play against the isolated pawn. If instead after the check they play king f8, knight to g5 comes anyway. And what to play next? If the king tries to manually castle, b3, and we're gonna go through this diagonal, and this is a better position for us. We've also got the possibility to play knight e4. The bishop is going to e3 and put pressure on the usual weakness c5. And if instead after knight g5 black tries to reroute the knight, because at the moment the knight doesn't really have any square to go to, knight g7, knight e4, and the queen goes back, and then b4 is the key move. If our opponent tries their best to fight to protect that pawn, you play b4. This is crazy. They have to take, and now you play a3 with the idea of playing bishop a3, winning the game, and there's no really way to defend this. They could play c5 actually, but then you can take, they can take, and now bishop to b2. So I hadn't created this line yet, but as I notice here, this is a terribly stupid pawn attacked multiple times. So position evaluated +5. Let's move on. If there's some lines missing, well, I will cover them in the next video. So I think we did everything from this line. So let's take it from the start. Knight c3. We're looking at e6, f4, the line with d5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop e5, and we went through knight e7 already. So we're done with this. So after f4, d5, knight f3, we're gonna look at other options. For example, we went through knight c6. What about d4 straight away? Okay, well, give a check. If knight to c6, this is a transposition. Now here, black didn't have the possibility to play knight e7 or to defend the knight in any way, so you're going to take it. Take back, and now you play knight a4, going for the usual weakness, the pawn in c5. Knight f6, b3. We don't care about that pawn, the pawn in e4. So for example, they take castle. Two options we're going to look at, but you know what the plan is. We're going for the square c5. So let's say the bishop either going to d6 or e7. So bishop to e6, you play knight e5. Now two options, either they take or they castle. If they take back, castle, d3 attacks the knight has to go, two squares available. Knight to g5, you play h4, the knight is trapped. Knight to h3, knight to c3, you take, now there's a triple pawn, you play queen to h5, and this is a stupid endgame to play for black. Black has the stupid bishop, we have a very good bishop. f6, all the best moves according to the engine, trying to create some sort of counterplay. Take, and black has really bad pawns. Check, moves back, take this pawn, and the rook has to move. And now bishop to e3, capitalizing on the weak pawns. You see the c5 pawn. So queen e7, take, and just carry on from here. What's the position here? It's +3 on the engine for a completely winning endgame. So after bishop d6 in this position, knight e5, what if they castle? Queen f3 is the move to continue hitting the knight. The knight cannot be protected by a pawn. Well, actually can. That would be f5. I haven't actually created this knight, but now d3, knight has to go back to f6, and bishop a3 capitalizes. So you see, I should be able to tell you these moves by myself. I actually am, but I want to make sure that I don't miss anything, like some tactics on the moment. But like, this is definitely the plan, as we keep saying. Yeah, so we're gonna continue from the other line. Where were we? So queen f3, knight to f6. Oh, okay, there's also the option knight to g5. We're gonna look at that. Knight to f6, you play c4, and this is a pawn move you want to make in order to cement the pawn in c5 that you're gonna capture later. With bishop a3. If they play take, then you take back with the pawn, and the weakness now remains because it's a doubled up pawn. Queen c7, double attack on e5, c4, ignoring that. So they can take the pawn, free pawn, but now the bishop. And now you can see at what cost that pawn came, because there's a huge attack on the square f6. Queen e4, take, and now take. We're going to recapture the pawn, and black has a very bad pawn structure. The line goes on with king g7. This just to see how the engine converts the winning endgame. a5, take, rook a7 to put more defense over the weak f7 pawn, but still knight d3, rook d8, knight e5, and capitalize on that pawn. The rook has to come back, and we win this pawn. There's absolutely no counterplay. Rook attacks the knight, knight goes back, rook goes back, g4. So this is one of those endgames where our opponent, if they don't really make any move, any compromising move, you might not know what to do, but you just go on with the pawns. a4, you play b4. Very important not to allow any counterplay. a3 in order to stop the support of the square b4, but you play g5. They might attack you, but you play h4. And the game carries on from here. You're going to have to take it from here. But position is already at +4 something. So here, after castle and playing queen f3, they might play knight g5. So you play queen e2. You don't want to take that knight, because then they take your knight in the center. So you play queen e2, and now we're renewing the threat on the knight. The knight is trapped, can't move anywhere. So f6 is the only counterplay at this point. You play knight to c4, securing the knight, but now it looks like black knight can go back to f7. Take, so it's very good to take that bishop, because it's the defender of the square c5. So remember that we want to target that. In fact, the engine move now is bishop a3. We're going to capitalize on that pawn. a5, counterplay. Obviously, black is threatening bishop a6, which is annoying. You're going to have to play d3. So you take here bishop c5, and now two options. If queen to d7, moving away, you take the rook. Bishop a6, you just play d3 and you're fine. They take back, but now you play knight c5 and you're winning this endgame. You wrap the exchange with no compensation. Here, instead of moving the queen, what if they had counter-attacked us straight away, and we still play d3, queen to d5, and you still take the rook. There is no compensation. If they move there, you play knight b6, and you take it from here. It's still a winning endgame. So let's go back from the start, and before closing this video, no, we're gonna look at e6 still, f4, and I think we did everything from d5. No, actually no, d5. So let's keep going from d5. Yeah, d5, knight f3, and we're looking at the line with d4. Check. Yeah, knight c6 blocks, and now take, knight a4, going straight away for the weakness. Knight f6, b3, and we don't care about this pawn, castle. And we went through bishop d6 earlier. Now we're going to go through bishop e7. The bishop is a little bit better there, in a way that it's not going to be targeted by our knight, and it's still defending the pawn. So here we play bishop a3, double attack on the pawn, and castle, we play queen e2, attacking the knight. Now, the knight is the defender of this square, so it needs to be defended. If they play knight f6 to move away, you play knight e5 careless. We're attacking the pawn in c6. It's very important to be able to trade this knight for this bishop. Try to obviously not memorize the moves, because you're not going to memorize anything, just like I never memorize anything. Although I want to, but I just can't. It's impossible. So you want to trade the knight for that bishop, right? Queen c7, and now you take. And when they take, you take back, and there's no compensation here. Queen b6 is the best move. You play queen to c4 to defend the knight. Rook e8, rook d8, knight a4 attacking the queen yet again. The queen moves, and you can safely take this pawn, and the position is falling apart for the black player. If after queen e2 the black player doesn't move the knight, rather wants the knight to keep defending that pawn and plays f5, and black says, you know what, try and take this pawn, I challenge you. Well, d3. Okay, knight c3, counter-attacking on the queen. Take, and we've got this familiar pattern. Our opponent is retaining the pawn, but at what cost? Knight e5, the usual threat. Here it seems like queen d4 is check, and the king has to move, and black is defending everything. A lot of defense on this pawn. But now, now bishop to d6 to challenge our very strong knight. Rook a to e1. We're going to close the line here because this is just a horrible position. They can't play bishop d7 to defend that pawn. They can play bishop b7, but that bishop is never going to play. And the position is evaluated plus 250 here after knight c4. Yes, the best move here is rook to f6, and he says take the bishop. We keep noticing this. Queen to f2 capitalizes on that pawn, so we notice how that goes. What if instead of that move black had played bishop e7? You see, I didn't even notice it myself because I didn't have that line. So this is very obvious. You got that threat. So let's do the last line before closing this video. So knight to c3 right at the start of the game. The e6 variation, f4, d5, knight f3, d4 straight away, check, and knight to c6. I think we did everything here. Yes, we did everything here. So let's go on now. After the bishop d5 check, they can block with the bishop. We didn't look at this move. And then in the next video, we're going to go through knight d7 as well. They can block with the bishop. Now, take the bishop straight away, and there's two ways to take back. So if they take back with the queen, knight to e2, you have to save the knight. And now here a lot of players are annoyed with the move d3, which is fair enough. I find it very annoying, but there's also knight c6 developing. So if they play knight c6, d3. So if you get a chance to play d3, don't let your opponent play d3. d3 also supports the pawn. Bishop d6, how do we take this? Now here a lot of players will be tempted to play e5. But actually castle. So that means we don't really care about black playing e5 themselves, because if that happens, we're gonna play the familiar pattern for queen to e1, and then queen to g3, because the dark square bishop is not there and this square is weak. Okay, so we're gonna look at a similar line in a second. Like here the engine takes and then takes back, so we really want to get rid of this bishop, right? The bishop says the best move is to take, and then the game carries on. We're gonna go through this line maybe in the next video, but there will be similar lines anyway. So d3, bishop d6, castle. If they play knight g to e7, for instance, okay, bishop to d2. There's nowhere else you can put the bishop. And it is important to notice, this is why it's important to understand the patterns. Why not b3 like we did before? Obviously, it's not about memorizing moves. b3 is pointless because you don't have that bishop a3 move threatening here, because this pawn is just not weak. We did not do the usual capture on the knight. There's a pawn here that can go to b6. So bishop e3, bishop a3 doesn't make sense. Bishop d2 is better. Bishop c7, now a3. So the reason for bishop d2 is after castle you play b4. So that's the point. That's the way we develop the dark square bishop when there is no swap of the bishop takes in c6. Takes, e5. And here we're going through a similar pattern, but you play b5, the knight has to go. So you see, if they let you make that move b5, you do it, because then the bishop can go to b4, and it's a lovely place. It's kind of the only place. Knight moves back, and now b6. This is a tactic. They have to take with the bishop, and now you can take this pawn. That's a much better pawn. Queen to e6, and now knight back to f3, and there's a lot of attack on the isolated pawn. We're gonna play against the... Oh my god, I just yawned massively. So that's a serious weakness that you're going to be fighting against. So here after bishop d7 blocks, take. What if after knight e2 they play d3 straight away? The annoying move. You have to take, and when they take back, check. So knight blocks, knight e5. We want to create the usual weakness. Okay, so if queen to d6, because there's a double attack on the knight, you want to take, right? Everything starts to make sense now. You've seen it before. Knight c3, knight f6, king to e2 to connect the rooks, bishop e3, bishop e7, d3, king moves, and here we are already beginning our attack. Knight to g4 to attack the bishop doesn't work. You're going to play bishop to g1, okay, because you're going to preserve the bishop, kick the knight away, and then go for that pawn. Let's see what the engine says, because I've actually stopped the line here. What does the engine say here? e5, and you play f5 is lovely because it prevents the knight from, you know, being a knight. But actually, yeah, f5, yes, that's amazing. So knight f6, but I want to see how we're going to put pressure on this pawn. The bishop wants to return. I want to know if knight a4 is the right move here, but actually not, because of c4. So in this case, it's wrong, because c4 can come. And yeah, I was thinking c4 and then take the pawn, but that drops this one. So it's just not possible. Remember, because of this knight, I should have thought about it. So this knight's attacking this pawn. This pawn is a little bit weak, actually, because they can play c4. So in this case, the knight a4 move cannot happen. That plan cannot happen because of knight f6. Okay, so here we have to play b3. And that's fair enough. It makes perfect sense. So I think we are threatening, indeed, this move. But when c4 comes, you gotta be able to take with this pawn. Okay. g6 is an interesting move to tackle against this strong center, and white has got a better endgame by playing rook c1. Okay, so we are going for that pawn, right? Knight a4 and then take the pawn. So apparently we don't care about getting taken here, even isolating our own pawn. This is weird, but that's the best thing to do, because we're going to be winning material, and the rook will be on an open file. And also remember, it's not just the c5 pawn to be weak, but also the c6 pawn. So we've seen a line with d3 here in the variation with bishop to d7. Take, and what if they take with the knight, right? We're going to close this video after this one. So we have to save the knight with knight e2, and usual thing now here, d3 is wrong because it's just a free pawn. Two lines I've created. So knight g to f6, we play d3, don't want to lose the pawn for no reason. Bishop e7, castle, bishop d2. So you know the plan. When you don't create that weakness, do bishop to d2, knight b6, queen e1, c4. And this is an attempt of the black player to find some counterplay, because otherwise there's going to be a weakness forever. Also, black doesn't really have any moves, if you think about it at this moment. Try and find a move for black, really. So c4, king to h1. I struggled to understand this move myself when I saw it, but it's actually very deep. You want to get out of that diagonal. Okay, so after rook c8, you play a4 to attack the knights. It's a thematic move against that knight, because they can't play a5. That's why we play queen to e1, to prevent any counterplay on the a, and on the a5 we could play a4. Takes, a6, and now you if they play a6, you pin the knights. It's a weakness. Rook e8, queen to g3. So queen e1, queen to g3 is a thematic move you always want to make. And yeah, the line ended here. White is considerably better. It's got to play queen, bishop to f8, and then the best move is knight f takes the pawn in d4 for free. But what if, let's say, black? Well, okay, how is black gonna defend the pawn? He can't really defend it like this. It looks very goofy. What's the play now? Yeah, the position is still better for white. So, well, white wants to play. I will play queen f2, but maybe it's better to play rook to. I mean, the engine says rook f to d1. So we're gonna take this pawn eventually, but I guess we are gonna play queen to f2. Black's first move is h6. These are just computer moves that, like, trying to prolong the problems. Knight f to d7 is the best move, and then knight takes the pawn in d4. Let's say black plays any other move, like, I don't know, queen d6, just to make an example. And now b4 is the key move that removes the bishop from the square of unless black wants to sacrifice material like knight to a4, and then we can win material. Position evaluated plus 350, but this is just computer calculating many moves ahead. Makes no sense for a human. Here, let's look at, instead of knight f6, let's look at the line with queen to b6. Here we play castle, knight f6, and then d3, rook to c8. So it looks like in this case, how are we going to take that pawn? Personally, when I play this myself, I find that like very often I'm unable to actually do anything about this pawn structure. I find it really annoying. But the best way to go about here is b3, bishop e7, queen e1, and then castle. You could play bishop to d2. I struggle to understand this myself, because I say, why bishop d2 now if we could have played b4 afterwards? But the thing is, this is like black playing the most solid variation, which is why I kept it for the end of the video. So how to play now? Queen to c6, best move. Queen to g3. Like here, you're gonna have to take it from here. There's like, if black plays knight to e8 to reroute the knight, you're gonna play rook a to e1, and the idea is to play f5. And white is actually very well positioned. If you think about it, especially with the open file over here, the knights are jumping, the bishops are coming, you know, it looks really good. So it's better, on a human level, it's better for white to play. If black plays, let's say, knight to h5 to attack the queen, you play queen to h3, attacking the knight again. So that threat doesn't work, okay? The knight will have to go back. If it gets defended, he played g4. The knight is now misplaced. Okay, remember from the Rossolimo lines, the knight just can't move knight. It's a very stupid knight. And the goal of the Grand Prix, I know you've been waiting for this move, f5. This is a move that will happen a lot. You will see it in the following lines that I'm going to show you. E takes, for example, but you just take with g. It looks like our king is getting a little bit ugly. But the thing is, our king is much safer. Our opponent doesn't have the light square bishop, and when you go to h1, the pieces are coming to attack. We do have the dark square bishop, and black here will not be able to find the same degree of protection. Bishop f6, these are the best moves according to the engine. You play bishop to h6, beginning the oppression. King moves, and our king moves as well. What to play now? There's no much to play, so these are engine moves, but you want to take, and then the queen takes back here, and position is better for white. This is just our opponent, though, playing only engine moves. Here, a swap of queens not possible. You're attacking the knight, maybe knight to, I don't know, knight to f6, getting the pieces in the defense of the king. But actually, this is, you know, it's not good. You're going to play rook to g1, so that's how you play rook to g8, protecting everything. These are moves that look really normal. Knight e5, threatening. Checkmate, queen c7 has to stop it, but now there's a sacrifice. I didn't even see this myself, not even close, but actually, yeah, well, it's the kind of sacrifice you can, if you think about it for a second, you do find. It's just that I hadn't created the line. Here, after queen to g3, if black plays queen to a6, this is the best move. Now, I suppose that the reason is to play b5, c4, and try to open the file. So black needs to get the rook going. Rook to f to e1, knight to b8, and rerouting the knight. So this is how you carry an attack against the king in the Grand Prix. Queen to h3, knight moves, you play knight to g3, coming closer to the king. Knight to b4, attacking the pawn. That's a temporary problem. You play rook c1 to defend it. Black makes a move, let's say knight to d7, you kick the knight away, the knight moves, and now you simply return to f1. So remember, if the knight goes to b4, you don't have a reason to lose this pawn, simply because you don't allow any counterplay. The center is closed, okay? So, and the game will continue from here. What can our opponent do? Let's see some moves. But obviously, let's say rook e8, and how do we continue? e5, I was thinking about this move myself in order to play knight e4. I liked it, but best to play rook e1. We're never really concerned about e5 ever happening, not just because you lost the knight, but in general, e5 is not good to play for the Sicilian player against the Grand Prix, because that really allows f5 to come with a strong attack on f6, or at least the theme behind it.